This happened a few years ago, and at the time I didn't think it was scary at all. Just confusing. It was only later, after everything had already happened, that it started to bother me. I was living alone back then in a small apartment. Nothing special. One bedroom, thin walls, the kind of place where you can hear your neighbors coughing through the vents. I worked late hours, so most nights I didn't get home until after midnight. By the time this happened, that routine felt normal. One night, I got home a little earlier than usual. I remember because I was actually looking forward to sleeping. I dropped my keys on the counter, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto the couch without even turning on the lights. A few minutes later, my phone rang. I checked the screen. Unknown number. I usually don't answer unknown numbers, but I was tired and not really thinking. I figured it was spam or maybe a wrong number. So I picked up. I said, "Hello." There was a pause. Then a woman's voice said, "I didn't expect you to answer." She sounded calm, not scared, not rushed. I told her she had the wrong number. She went quiet for a second, then said, "No, this is the right number." That was the first moment I felt uncomfortable. I asked who she was trying to reach. She said a name. It wasn't my name. I told her that again, wrong number, and went to hang up. But before I could, she said something that stopped me. She said, "He always answers." I don't know why, but I asked who he was. Another pause. Then she said, "You're in his apartment." I sat up on the couch. I told her she was wrong, that she definitely had the wrong person. She didn't argue. She just said, "Did you move in recently?" I didn't answer. I don't know why I didn't hang up right then. Curiosity, maybe. Or the way she spoke, like she already knew the answers. She sighed softly and said, "Okay, I'll call back later." Then she hung up. I sat there in the dark for a long time, staring at my phone. I told myself it was a prank, or someone confused, or a weird coincidence. Still, I locked my door that night. And for the first time since moving in, I double-checked the windows. The next evening, my phone rang again. Same unknown number. This time, I didn't answer. It rang until it stopped. A few seconds later, I got a voicemail notification. I listened to it. It was silent at first, just faint background noise. Then the same woman's voice, quieter this time. "I know you're not him," she said, "but you should tell him to stop." That was it. No explanation. No context. I blocked the number. For a few days, nothing happened. No calls. No voicemails. I started to relax. I convinced myself I'd made it into something bigger than it was. Then one night, around 2 a.m., my phone rang again. Blocked number. I didn't even know that was possible. I answered. Before I could speak, she said, "He's not answering anymore." Her voice sounded different this time. Tense. I told her, firmly, that she needed to stop calling me, that I didn't know who she was talking about. She said, "Then why did his phone ring in your apartment?" My stomach dropped. I told her she was wrong. She said, "It rang here too." I asked her where here was. She didn't answer that. Instead, she said, "You should check your bathroom." I hung up. I didn't move for a long time. Eventually, I stood up and turned on every light in the apartment. The place looked exactly the same. Quiet. Empty. The bathroom door was open. Everything inside looked normal. Except for one thing. On the counter, next to the sink, was an old phone. Not my phone. A cheap flip phone. Scratched. Dead screen. I stared at it, trying to convince myself it had always been there. I knew it hadn't. I didn't touch it. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment. I stayed with a friend that night and told him everything. He laughed it off and said someone was messing with me. The next day, we went back together. The flip phone was gone. A week later, I moved out. I never got another call. But every now and then, when my phone rings from an unknown number, I still wait a second before answering, because part of me wonders if the call isn't for me, and never was.